you. Yesterday, yesterday afternoon, during our break, I went outside and it had been raining, but it wasn't raining anymore, and the sun was coming out. And the bare trees behind our house were all decorated with these shiny, glimmering drops of rain. It was the most beautiful sight as the sun hit those drops of rain. And I'm reminded of that now as I sit here looking at all these sparkling drops of rain that you are. Yesterday, John mentioned something about saying thank you when receiving the incense, like I just did um, before this talk and this morning also. And just as John remembered being Aiken Roshi's head of practice for many years and hearing that softly whispered thank you, I was John's head of practice for many years, and I heard him say thank you to me. And I hear him saying thank you to me when I say thank you to Chris. And I hear Aiken Roshi saying thank you to John. It's all tangled up. On the first night, uh, when John read through the collection of Miscellaneous Koans, for a while I wasn't sure if he was doing that or not. And then I just let go and took the ride. And it was a great ride. I've spoken to a number of people and asked them about their experience during that time when John was reading all those miscellaneous koans. And a number of folks said how, you know, certain koans popped out for them, ones they recognized, maybe felt a certain intimacy with. I think I was asking people about that, trying to find a way to describe what my experience was. And it was not so much popping as um, being embraced or something. It was like, they got a weighted hoodie, right? Or weighted blankets, and he got a weighted hoodie, and he said putting it on felt like a hug. And that's what I felt like. I got hugged all over, inside and out, as I listened to each of those old friends. One idea I had about trying to convey what it was like was a photograph I have somewhere, but I couldn't find it. That was taken at the end of one of the seshins in Kamakura. Every time there was a seshin, a picture was taken. Usually about 60 people huddled into a narrow space standing on tiptoes and crouching down so everybody could see everybody's face. And then after the retreat, we all got a copy of that picture with a piece of paper where someone had drawn an outline of all of the little heads on the picture and numbered them. And then there was a list on the bottom. So if you couldn't remember who that was, you could find their name. And I recently bumped into one of those pictures that I have, and it felt kind of like that listening to those miscellaneous koans, all those old friends that practiced together. I guess koans feel like someone I practice with. It has come to feel like that. It certainly didn't feel like that at the beginning. Some of my friends have called me a romantic, and I suppose they're right. One of the other experiences I've had as I've been spending time with this collection, this miscellaneous collection, um, not so much any particular koan, just the whole experience of the collection itself, how the sum of the parts is somehow greater than the sum of the parts. And mixed in with um, spending time with that experience of spending time with the miscellaneous koans, I kept finding myself returning to my memories of my first girlfriend. And that was interesting. I could have dismissed it as, random thought, something getting in the way, but for whatever reason, I didn't. And I just let it be there, let them be there, and found myself curious about this visitation of these memories of my first girlfriend in high school and my spending time with the miscellaneous koan collection. And as I spent time with that kind of koan itself, where are all these memories about my girlfriend doing here now? It was kind of a koan. I just let it be a question. And, you know, I look back on that relationship with a certain special something. First time I dared to be myself with someone and felt accepted, even more than accepted. Um, the um, the way it helped me break out of some of the bottles I was in, remembering the goose in the bottle go on, you know, about how I thought I should be, how I thought I shouldn't be. What stood out as I scanned through those memories, or they scanned through me really, was that I even invited, her name was Patricia. I even invited Patricia home for dinner to meet my parents. Ah, and, that might not sound so strange, but I had cultivated very carefully my independence from my family. I got away from there as much as possible, as soon as possible. And, when we weren't sitting around at TV tables watching television and eating dinner, and we actually sat at a table and ate dinner. And one of my parents would ask, "Well, how was school today?" And I said, "Okay, anything interesting?" Nah. And I invited my girlfriend to meet my parents. And I was scared. I was scared what she's going to think of them because I knew what I thought of them, but she didn't. And that helped me break out of maybe another couple of bottles that I was trapped in about the way I thought about my parents and how we used to spend hours talking, sitting in my car. My car was a 1955 black Cadillac, four door. This was 1966. I hated the car. It was not cool. I wasn't cool enough to appreciate how cool it was, actually, but that's where I was. Eh, Although I hated the car, I loved the front seat. It was like a couch. It was like an 11-way seat. You could go forward and backwards and tilt this way and that way. And we used to go drive to a place in Reno and look at the lights and get the seat comfortable and snuggle and just talk. You know, she's the first person I shared my dreams with, my fears. One of my fears was her sharing with me how she thought she wanted to become a nun. She was a devout Catholic. And that was, yeah, I was an atheist, agnostic, fallen Jew. I don't know. I was, and yet I felt a connection when she talked about it. Little did I know that 10 years later I'd be contemplating becoming a Tibetan monk. So that's kind of what like my experience with the miscellaneous koans were like, are like. Mm, I'm still in a pretty active relationship with them and other people as they cultivate their relationship with them. Um, I spent time with the miscellaneous koans in Kamakura with Yamada Roshi. At the time, there were 22, and this is the little piece of paper he gave me with all of the koans. And I mean, it's like really one page, both sides, and that's it. Although I did count, and a lot of them have parts, so if you count all the parts, there's about 50. Yeah, if you count all the parts of ours now, there'd be over 100, I think. Though, as part of this reverie with the miscellaneous, I remembered that sometime in the past, John gave me a copy of the miscellaneous koans used by the Zen Center of Los Angeles that I believe he got from Maizumi Roshi. And it was a typed out list. And I volunteered to digitize them and type them all into my computer, all 345 of them. And that's not counting the parts. But um, the thing is, um, my relationship with this collection is kind of complicated because um, I didn't know they were koans. I had specifically told Yamada Roshi when I met him that I did not do koan practice. So, and well, reminiscent of my first girlfriend, Yamada Roshi said, okay, I want you to succeed doing it the way you're doing it. Yeah, I think I fell in love with him right there. So when he asked me a question, he said, I'm going to ask you a question. Don't think about it. I might ask you about it somewhere down the line. I said, okay. I think I was still in shock from him accepting me just as I was. And he said, stop the sound of the distant temple bell. I didn't think anything. I just said, stop the sound of the distant temple bell. Okay. He said, don't think about it. So I'm not going to think about it. And I didn't. And when I went in to have a conversation with him, sometimes he'd ask about it, and sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he'd just ask how my meditation was going, and I'd tell him. And then, eventually, um, you know, I had been trying, and I can't say trying. I had been in Hawaii for about 3 years with Aiken Roshi, and the bottle of my need to be right and the bottle of my need not to be wrong that I was trapped in really got in the way of me having any kind of an experience. And our relationship was such that he wasn't a warm, snuggly person, and I could project all of my own fears and doubts onto him. And so, but I'd never heard this question before. Stop the sound of the distant temple bell. Never heard it. Didn't know what it was. I thought, okay. And even without thinking about it, and it was so great. I could go in and talk with Yamada Roshi without worrying about being right or wrong. Because, well, it wasn't like I was being tested about this question he had asked me. And in the midst of my not worrying about being right or wrong, um, a response came one day. And I just said, oh, how about this? And he said, oh, okay. And he maybe later on gave me another question. It went on like that until um, for a year and a half, 2 years, I think, maybe. And because I had practiced with Tibetans before I practiced Zen, and I was told by my Tibetan teachers never talk about your practice with anybody, it will dilute it. I still had that in me, so I never told anybody what I was talking to the Roshi about. I never mentioned this weird question about stopping the sound of the bell or putting out the fire across the river. And I mean, I look back and I can't believe that I didn't connect the dots and say these must be koans. How could I not? But I didn't. I think partly because I trusted him so much, I didn't think he would ever do that to me, that he would ever give me a koan. Um, I never asked him about that. I wish I had. But I suspect he'd say, well, you said you didn't do koan practice, and we weren't. I was just giving you these questions. And one day after um, having a conversation with him about one of those weird questions he had asked me, Um, he leaned forward and says, "I think you should try practicing with the koan mu now." And I said, "Yes." Again, it was really, um, someone I deeply loved told me something he thought would be good for me. And unlike my my response to my parents' attempts to do that, I was open. A couple of years of hanging out with these questions had opened me without even knowing they were koans. I wasn't even sure if I had answered them, actually. He'd just sort of go, okay. And he wouldn't immediately give me another one. There'd be a space. And then the next time, well, how about it? Here's another question. Don't think about it. Right? I still didn't know. I'm practicing with Mu now. I'm still not telling anybody what I'm doing in my practice. And I still don't know that all those questions that I had been spending time with for a couple of years were koans. No idea. I'm a little slow, and maybe that's good. And maybe he knew that. So actually, I know he knew that. He told me once, you should go slow when I was feeling impatient. And I don't remember when it was I discovered that all those questions. Oh, I know when it was. Yes, I do. Sorry. Um, Again, about a year later, after he suggested I try practicing with the koan mu um, during a retreat, uh, on the last day when he saw everybody. That was the first day he met with everybody. The last day he met with everybody. There were 60 of us. So they were short meetings, although some of them weren't. And I wondered about those. And in my meeting, which I went in and I'm practicing with the Mu koan, and sort of did my bows and scooched up in front of him, and he looks at me and he says, "So, tell me when you met Mu." And it was kind of like when he suggested that I practice with the koan Mu. There was no hesitation, no anything, no resistance. It was just I told him, and he said, "Yeah." He shook my hand. He did that was his habit of shaking hands. He shook hands going in circles. And he gave me this with the date on it and my name. That's when I found out that all those questions I'd been spending time with were the miscellaneous koans. And it didn't even occur to me to ask him why he had done that. I wouldn't ask him why. I would just, I don't know, want to have a conversation about it. And now, um, and now, not up to now yet. So when I left Japan and came here and um, reunited with John after our time in Hawaii, and I just finished the Gateless Gate with Yamada. And now I knew what koans were. The genie was out of the bottle. Not only did I know what koans were, I knew that there was these collections and that you went from one to another, and my craving and grasping and achieving and wanting recognition and all that stuff was rising for sure. That was a good thing. It gave me a chance to look at it some when I wasn't swept away by it. So I reconnected with John and explained, well, I just finished a gateless gate with Yamada. And I'm thinking, Blue Cliff Record, here I come. John says, let's start from the beginning. How about that? Now, it wasn't exactly like when Yamada said, I think you should practice with Mu, I gotta admit. There was a part of me that went, what? There was a part of me that did that. And I noticed it. But there was a much larger part of me that said, yeah, that would be great to be able to have a conversation with somebody who um, I also loved in a way that I hadn't had a conversation with Yamada about them, although I didn't know that exactly at the time, exactly what it was I hadn't had the conversation with Yamada about. But it was my life. We never talked about my life, he and I. But, well, when my mom died, he called me in, expressed his condolences, talked about my life then. We're never really born, so we never really die, he said. And I received that and thought, that really doesn't help, Roshi, but thanks for trying. Couple of times, actually, after I knew what a koan was and I was spending time with them, I'd have the experience of just moving through my life and suddenly the koan that I was spending time with, like, be animated. It's my life was the koan. It was like, wow, this is that koan. And I remember going in the first time and saying that to Yamada. This thing happened. I was, walking through the supermarket and I had this experience where it was just like, oh, that's what he did. And he nodded. And then he said, yes. Well, back to the koan. And I thought, okay, that's, I love you as you are and you love me as I am. And I had no um, disappointment about that, really, I'd have to say. But in practicing with John, that was something that did come into our conversations. And so my relationship with the miscellaneous changed dramatically. It was already something that had changed me without even knowing what they were. Now I'm consciously taking them up and asking myself, what is this in my life? What is this in my life? That feels like those kind of conversations I had with my first girlfriend. What are you going to do in your life as high school students? Mm. And how many times now I have gone through the miscellaneous um, with people who I've been practicing for a while, and spent time with the Miscellaneous a while back before they maybe expanded to the degree they have now, and they want to reacquaint themselves with the Miscellaneous and how pretty much everyone that I've spent time with the Miscellaneous who are going back again to reacquaint themselves with it have the same kind of experience of it's a special collection somehow. Even though the koans come from other collections, I think it's because traditionally it was that first collection of koans you got to know, like the first girlfriend you get to know. And there's always a special place in my heart for that first girlfriend, for this first collection. Even as it expands beyond the 22 that it initially was for me, um, that doesn't really change it. It's just part of its maturing. As we mature, the loved ones we have mature, change, often getting just bigger as they get older. So that's been one of the things that's been going on for me. That just appreciation of my relationship with the Miscellaneous as a collection, and I can't say any other collection of koans elicits the feeling in my heart I have for the Miscellaneous, and I kind of like that. And I think it was partly that appreciation that led um, Rachel Boughton, Roshi, and I to spend once a week, every week, pretty much for a couple of years, going through the Miscellaneous with the with the idea we're going to, you know, I I have about a dozen versions of our Miscellaneous Koans on my computer of various vintages, and we thought that we standardize it, I guess is what the idea was. We're going to get one list that everybody's going to agree on, and it's going to include everybody's miscellaneous, whatever, miscellaneous. We failed utterly. But because, and that's great. I think it's just, you can't do that. It's like numbering them feels weird, but we numbered them just so we could just refer to them when we had our conversations and didn't have to go, where's that one now? Well, it's just before this one and after that one. And yeah, but where are those? So we numbered them, but I appreciate that numbering isn't really whatever. Numbering is it too. If it's in the shit and the piss, then it's got to be in the numbering. And as we went through them together, spending time with them together, sharing our dreams together of the koans, um, we got interested in, well, where do they come from? And, you know, not on a sort of scholarly level, but at the level of, I wanted to know where my girlfriend's parents came from. I wanted to meet them. And it was kind of like that. I just want to get to know you better. And I want to get to know these koans better. So where did they come from? And I was going to share some of those with you that I've discovered, um, and see what can go from there. Where's my album? Oh, yeah. Okay. So one of the ones you heard on the first night, and maybe other times, Make the Mountains Dance. Okay, Make the Mountains Dance. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from a Japanese esoteric tradition called Shugendo, where Yamabushi, mountain people, went out to the mountains, often standing under like ice cold waterfalls for long periods of time on one foot and holding certain mudras or whatever, with the desire to meet a protector deity named Z- Zhao Gonggen. And, you know, oh, so, in the same way that I'm curious about the ancestry of my girlfriend, I'm curious that, oh, this has got some Japanese shamanism in it. Okay, that's good. It's like nice, no judgment there. It's just like I see, I'm half Ukrainian. Yeah, okay. Um, let's see. Next one that comes up that where is it? Oh yeah. Slowly I cross a stream and extinguish its sound. And it has a companion. It's a two-part koan, part two. My lazy gaze follows the tracks of the flying birds. That's the koan that came to me when I saw the art card that came with the package for the retreat. Those silhouetted birds against Mount Fuji. My lazy gaze follows the tracks of the birds through the sky. That came from Shui Do, person who originally gathered the 100 koans of the Blue Cliff Record, and it was from a verse that he wrote for one of the koans in the collection. The koan involves Yun Men. Yun Men often asked questions and then answered them himself. One of his things. And I like knowing that because I feel like I know Yun Men more that way. It's one of his quirks, one of his quirks. Um, and the case that this is part of a verse from is every day is a good day. I do not ask about before awakening. What about after awakening? And then he answers, every day is a good day. In Shuedo's verse, what he composed in response to this koan is, slowly I cross a brook and extinguish its sound. My lazy gaze follows the tracks of the flying birds. And that's interesting. It puts it in a larger context for me to appreciate my companion here. Putting it even into a larger context, I find out that Shui Do has taken it from the Dhammapada, a Pali canon, very early, the earliest of Buddhist scriptures, in which it says, like the path of birds in the sky, it is hard to trace the path of those who do not hoard, who are judicious, and whose field is the freedom of emptiness and signlessness. I'm sure Suedo must have known about that, and it came to him as he met this koan. And now I have, I don't know, another facet from which to spend time with this koan from. The leaves of the lotus are round, round, rounder than a mirror. The edge of the water nut is sharp, sharp, sharper than an awl. Teacher named Jia Shan said that in response to a question I found out. And that was interesting. Oh, it's a response to a question. What was the question? And the question was, what does essential nature look like? What does the real world look like? And this is his response. I know you better. Thank you for sharing. Hmm. On top of a mountain, a cloud is boiling rice. In front of the Buddha hall, a dog is pissing. Okay, that's an image. Where did that come from? Again, Um, um, it comes from Zhao Zhou. I'm sorry. It comes from a commentary by Shui Do again, actually a verse from Shui Do about a case in the Blue Cliff Record in which Zhao Zhou is involved, and it's Zhao Zhou said, um, "The wooden Buddha cannot pass through fire; it will surely burn. The clay Buddha will not pass through water; it will surely melt. The metal Buddha will not pass through a furnace; it will surely melt. The true Buddha is in the house." And Shuido's comment by, by way of a verse is this: "On top of a mountain, a cloud is boiling rice. In front of the Buddha hall, a dog is pissing." Huh, that's interesting. And now I've got, cross conversations happening between koans and teachers. Huh. And again, I feel like I know it better. I have more questions to ask. Stone woman gives birth in the middle of the night. And we just sat with that in the morning temple, didn't we? Well, this is from Han Shan, a poem that Han Shan wrote and that another teacher named Dong Shan quoted. So Dong Shan quotes Han Shan saying, "Red dust dances at the bottom of the well. White waves rise on the mountain peaks. The stone woman gives birth to a stone child. Fur on the tortoise grows longer by the day." And Dongshan said, "If you want to know the awakened mind, all you have to do is behold these sights." Huh. Again, puts it into a richer context that gives me a feeling of more intimacy with it. And how different this is than when I was, you know, realizing what koans were and that there was something to attain, I thought, and progress to be made and books to go through and curriculum to finish. um, I would scour books looking for hints to koans, right? Somehow forgetting all those questions that I never even thought about when I was with the Miscellaneous. But I think it was Eleanor who said something about how is it that we can just not see what's so obviously right in front of us, something like that. And yeah, we do. That's just what we do. I mean, there it was. I had spent 2 years not asking questions and not thinking about questions and getting through a collection of koans. And now I'm looking through books, trying to find the answer. How is it I could not just see what was so obviously in front of me? Hmm, I'm beginning to see it now. Let's see. The stone woman gives birth in the middle of the night. Hmm. Manjushri rides on a lion. Samantabhadra rides on an elephant. What does the Buddha ride on? Found out that was Yun Men. I'm surprised he didn't answer the question himself, actually, but it was a little bit different. Actually, he did answer the question, so what am I talking about? Of course he did. It's Young Men. Um, but for the sake of a koan, his answer was cut out. Sometimes his answers are left in, and we're wondering, like, how do you understand his answer? So what Yun Men said, I have neither an elephant, wait, no. Why does Samanta Bradra ride on an elephant and Manjushri a lion? It's a koan in itself. The master said, "Young men, I have neither an elephant nor a lion. I'm riding on the Buddha Hall and leave through the triple gate." That sounds like me, man. And you spend enough time with these stories, these myths, these fairy tales, these koans, and these names, Yun Men, Zhao Zhou, Jia Shan, start to become people that you know and that you're getting to know better. And in the process, I'm one of the people I'm getting to know better. Let's see. I think I have a couple more. Ah, yeah. In the dark, darken further. Um, we attribute that to Lao Tzu, which is correct. It's, it's from the Tao Te Ching. But I was interested to find a Chan teacher, Dong Shan again, using it. A monk asked, "What does it mean to say, amidst the darkling, darken again?" And Dong Shan replied, "It's like a dead person's tongue." And so, oh yeah, you've got you got that Taoist lineage in you too. I'm half Polish, not only Ukrainian. You know, it's a mix, and you're a mix. Taoism and Shintoism and Buddhism, and, you know, Confucianism, and that's coming from a place again of just wanting to know you better, not wanting to know details and history and being able to impress people. I certainly am capable of that, but this isn't that. Mm. Um, if you turn things around, you are like the Buddha, we attribute to Shui Feng. Mm. Um, but it actually appears in a sutra called the Heroic Progress Scripture. And the quote is, "People lose themselves pursuing things. If they could turn things around, they would be the same as Buddha." Somehow having that first part, people lose themselves in pursuing things, I appreciate, as I also appreciate if you could turn your things around, you are like the Buddha. So I think that's the end of that part. And there was one koan, I guess, that in the miscellaneous that I found myself spending time with in particular um, during the retreat, and that's the goose in the bottle, and appreciating all the bottles that I am in and have gotten out of some, and how I can get back in a bottle once I've gotten out of a bottle. That's interesting. How do you get back in the bottle? There's a koan. Um, and somebody asked, "Why is it so important not to break the bottle?" Hadn't thought of that. Why it's good to talk with each other. Things, huh? Why is it so important not to break the bottle? Okay, the woman. We have a woman. We are the woman. I am the woman. Don't want to break the bottle, but I want to get the goose out. Well, what's so? I mean, it's a special bottle. What is it? And as I have been saying, I recognize that I'm in a number of bottles that limit me, imprison me, ways of thinking, opinions. Um, you know, the way I can look for the coffee scoop and not see it because it's 6 inches to the left of where I always put it. um, and um, I'm not trying to get rid of bottles. I'm not trying to get rid of my delusions. I'm not trying to purify myself. I was. I'm just trying to get to know who I am, and that includes my delusions and my opinions and all of that stuff that I at one time wish I didn't have, but now it's like, well, I do have it. That bottle is useful. As I was talking to somebody about fear, how fear can be a bottle that traps us, keeps us from engaging fully life, even ourselves. And it's useful. I don't want to not have fear. Some things are dangerous. Anger is useful. It's energy. Sometimes you have to get angry, and it's okay. Lama Yeshe told me that as he chased 2 monks out of the monastery, spitting mad with a rake raised up over his head. And then he turned around laughing. And I'm standing there with my jaw hanging out. And he comes up to me and says, "Sometimes you have to get angry," and walks off laughing. Sometimes we have to get angry. Sometimes we do get angry. We don't have to. We do. We have to because we do. But, I don't have to be imprisoned by that. That doesn't mean I'm free to get angry all the time. It means that I have access to that energy when it's appropriate to respond that way. So I don't want to break those bottles. I don't want to get rid of my delusions. And then a koan that's not the miscellaneous, but I'm sure you all have heard the one about the 16 bodhisattvas getting into the bath together and realizing the cause of water, saying this subtle touch reveals the light that is in everything, the light that is in all of you, dripping from the trees yesterday and probably today. Well, that comes from a sutra, the Avantamsaka Sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra. Well, that's interesting. It comes from a sutra. And a lot of this koans are taken from sutras, okay? And as happens with a lot of the koans, um, it's been edited sort of for whatever reasons. But in the sutra, after that subtle touch that reveals the light in everything, it says, "We did not enter the bath to wash off dirt or clean our bodies." And I don't think they were talking about just relaxing in hot water and the benefits of that. It's an attitude that I cherish. That says, we're not trying to get rid of the unskillful mind habits that I have that cause me and others suffering. Where are they going to go? I'm trying to get to know them better. And that is the subtle touch that reveals the light and everything. You know? This morning, when I came in for the greeting, Um, and at the end, I said that um, poem about Yuan Wu and Wu Tzu and Little Jade and Rooster crowed, and isn't that the sound? It was the silence I was aware of when I said it. Silence. Isn't that the sound? And then I think I turned off my camera to signify I'm leaving, and so that Chris could do what he did to end the period. And I did this. Did you hear that squeaking sound? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe Zoom filtered it out. I heard it. So I just said, and isn't that the sound? And I'm feeling into the silence. And then I move the boom on my microphone and it squeaks ungodly. And I watch my mind go, ooh, and then I watch my mind relax and say, isn't that the sound? That squeaking microphone boom. So I'm going to end with that sound. Thank you all.